Hey, you're listening to Fat and Greasy Citizens, a podcast about Shakespeare. I'm Fat.
And I'm Greasy. Every week we do a deep dive into every act of every Shakespeare play ever written, mostly while drinking.
More specifically, I'm Chuck. I'm a former English major and now a digital editor who cares a lot about Shakespeare.
And I'm Gabe. Let's do it!
Hola, ciudadanos. Ay, Dios mío, soy Queen Elizabeth I. We just came back from defeating the Spanish Armada, and we think we heard one of them shout that as they fled. Chickens. This week's episode of Fat and Greasy Citizens is Comedy of Errors, Acts 1 and 2. Picture it! A pair of twin boys and their recently purchased twin slaves are aboard a ship with their parents, and, much like a lot of the Spanish Armada, their ship goes down, separating them into two pairs of master and slave, both named Antiphonus and Dromio respectfully. Years later, one of the Antiphonuses, now of Syracuse, and his servant Dromio travel to Ephesus to find his long-lost twin brother, also called Antiphonus, who has a servant called Dromio. Confused yet? Us too!
Any progress on your end on glasses?
You know, I went to CVS and looked at I've never really looked at the glasses kiosk.
Yeah.
But it was the most picked over thing I've ever seen. Like, it seems like everybody on the planet also lost their glasses. So
an episode of Star Trek, Twilight Zone.
Yeah, it's the opposite, you know. The opposite is like there isn't an apocalypse and my glasses didn't break. I just have too many glasses. So they've all been touched. I just can't find the right prescription.
All right. I'm
two or is it three?
I'm upright on a stool right now, so my back is going to be literal dog shit by the time we're done with this.
Oh, I've been on a bench for each of these recordings.
Nice.
And
my signal will just be like grimacing in pain. That means we're nearing the end.
If you get some stabbing sensations in your lower back, that's the threshold.
If for no reason while discussing Shakespeare I just scream "fuck, I'm so old," not a bit. My body is used trash. Fuck.
We're not saying you have to be old to analyze Shakespeare, but it sure helps.
It sure fucking helps.
Sure helps, gives you a ceiling on the time limit. It's about a 45-minute threshold.
Your brain and your spine starts to disintegrate. Fuck!
I've got my coccyx on a timer.
I don't think I've ever learned what a coccyx is because I just assume it has something to do with the cock. Because I'm that stupid. I'm just like, I think it's somewhere in the core, and so it's just like, I don't know, because I'm a child.
It's at the very tip. The only reason why I know is because just before I went to college, I went out to my parents' swing set. Almost, you know, like a moment of nostalgia before I was off on my own to New York City from Pennsylvania. One more time, I'm going to swing on the swing, and I did, and the chain broke because it's not built for adults, and I fell on my coccyx. And ever since then, at least this is my excuse. Ever since then, it's been difficult to do sit-ups for whatever reason because, you know, your tailbone is right on the floor there.
There's no good way to like put your ass in a cast and just like say like, all right, don't use your ass for 9 weeks, and it should.
Yeah. I didn't even go to a doctor because I knew like there's nothing for it. You know, like they're just going to tell you, yeah, well, we can't cast your area, your breadbasket.
Oh, this thing's torched. You'll never do sit-ups again. Oh my God, I haven't seen an anus destroyed like this.
This is a terrible anus.
You're telling me this is an anus of a 24-year-old man? Oh my God.
This is Janis Joplin's anus. I wonder if is Is that apocryphal, by the way? I always
I don't know this rumor of Janis Joplin's anus. So let's start by
no, there was
speaking of a comedy of errors. Janis
the
Joplin's
great
anus.
Shakespearean play. Comedy of Errors reminds me of Janis Joplin's anus.
What
In
is
that when they
possibly
when you open up this play, it's way older. Oh, I always heard that Janis Joplin's body was much older than her 27 years or whatever it was.
Oh,
when
she
she
just
died.
died seeming like a 70-year-old woman or something.
Yeah, like her innards were aged, but again, like that doesn't make any sense, really. Like they wouldn't be aged; they would be abused. Just because you're older doesn't mean you abuse your your like liver and you know what I mean.
Right.
Like it's not the same thing. It's apples and oranges.
Right, but like you would expect the ass to be the last thing. Like if you said that, like, oh yeah, her kidneys were shot, I'd be like, I could buy that. But if
Yep.
you say anus of
But
a
her
9-year-old
anus.
woman, say I think Janis Joplin was some kind of alien being or a time traveler. But
Now I know why she did all those drugs.
no, and that's how you get that peculiar sound, is that it echoes through a 9-year-old woman's anus and hit that note.
She was very screamy.
Much like Shakespeare's plays, impossible to date very effectively.
Look at this segue.
So we're talking about 2 acts of comedy of errors, not comedy of anuses, but we'll get there, no doubt. I do think pound for pound, at least in the first 2 acts, this has the most slapping of any play that I can foresee so far.
They beat the ever-loving shit out of each other, yes. Well, one character beats the other.
Beats
2 guys get the shit knocked out of them, yeah.
But just like everyone. It's like Three Stooges. People just walk in and be like, shut the fuck up. I don't enjoy what
Yeah. Shut up, porcupine. But I honestly think like the vibe I initially got, if you don't know Comedy of Errors, it's all about twins. The whole premise is twins. I don't know why I sound like a president there. Twins.
They're creepy, right? Twins.
These 2 twins get separate. Twinks, 2 twinks. Twins get separated.
Comedy of Twinks. That is a stronger play. But let's stick with what we have at this moment.
But these twins get separated from each other. One is isolated with his father in the town of Syracuse, and the other is isolated in the town of Ephesus.
I was impressed because I was just shrugging at you and saying, like, I don't know. It starts with an E. We can call it Elysium. We can call it any of like those elven towns. It's the nice town. It's not Syracuse.
Inhabiton.
It is. Yeah. It is like the Ivy League to Syracuse's Syracuse. It's like, you can think that Syracuse is a nice place they've come from, but not like.
Well, it makes me wonder if New York State also has. I mean, they have a Syracuse. I wonder if there's an Ephesus somewhere that we don't know about.
I think there has to be,
because they swiped so much from.
Yes, and there's and if you go to the other one, you go to jail, and if you can't pay bail, they murder you. And the dukes of both those towns keep raising the ante about what bail is.
Yeah,
like out of the gate, like so. I think this play is a lot of fun, but out of the gate, the stakes are just fucking absurd. So the way, like, I feel like Taming of the Shrew, like, snuck up on me from like a point of view of like, oh, from a modern sensibility, this is a horror film. This one out of the gate is just like you're met with a prisoner who's ready to die, and he's got a horrible tale to tell, and he's face to face with basically the mayor of this town, who says, "Oh, you got a rough break, but here's the thing: you're not from our town. You're from a bad town, and when we find people from this bad town, we lock them up. And your mayor of your town wouldn't let a guy pay bail, or wouldn't let a guy couldn't pay a relatively low bail, so he killed him. And so I'm doing that to everyone from your town now, but I'm also multiplying the bail times like 15. So you came to town, I'm raising the bail. I got no problem with you. You got no problem with me. But just so you know, chances are I'm going to straight up murder you. My hands are tied. I'm basically I'm the god of this town. I have unlimited power, but my hands are tied. There's nothing I can do. You're basically dead.
And nothing sets up a perfect like 80s style comedy than a bitter trade war, a bitter trade war between two towns. Nothing.
It's like the scroll for episode 1 where you're like,
it was like, what is trade wars?
The trade talks are bogging down. Son of a bitch.
What the hell's a midichlorian? No, but it really is that. It's like, and like I had a whole bunch of questions about the Syracuse Duke executing the first Ephesian merchants, because it's like, so the current law is that nobody travels and and they get killed because of that offense, but Syracuse did it first, but it's still unclear why. Like,
right. And since the Duke of our current town, Ephesium or whatever, is the one saying it, my complete assumption is like, this is hearsay. I'm not saying the Duke of Syracuse didn't kill a guy, but by the time it gets back to Ephesium and everyone's talking shit about the Duke of Syracuse, it's just like, oh yeah, no, he did nothing wrong. He had bailed nothing, but they gave him 2 seconds to pay it and he couldn't, so they killed him. And so the Duke of Syracuse, the Duke of Ephesium or whatever, either because we don't know him well enough yet to know if he's a dolt or if he's just trying to look tough or what, but just like decides that he needs to double down from there. But it makes no logical sense. The only thing that it does do, again, like contrary to like the laugh riot that we're supposed to be in for, or a quote comedy of errors to get excited about, is like the stakes are just absurd, and everyone in this play is at the mercy of powerful people who are not characters. Like everyone's, I shouldn't say who aren't characters, since the slaves are the victims of the sons and whatnot, but it just like starts out like from the point of view of desperate people just put in a terrible position, and with no power over their destiny. And again, which points to a laugh riot, something we should be really excited about.
Well, that's what it's funny. Like I really do. As soon as I started reading this, there's kind of a dire quality to it, an atmosphere that I think is really funny. Like it's genuinely like,
yeah,
like one of the first things the Duke says, again, if any Syracusan born come to the Bay of Ephesus, he dies. You know what I'm saying? And it's like, whoa,
we have an understanding.
But I mean, it's like again, it's like, yeah, like this I think is the zaniest opening that we've read so far for Shakespeare. Like not only is it like two completely irrational towns killing each other's merchants for seemingly no reason, but then you've got Aegeon who comes in and like it's like a perfect melodramatic, like I have a tale of woe for you.
Yeah, know? There's this old saying, not an old saying, but I remember a historian once saying that the East India Company that used to own half the world was like Exxon with guns. And I feel like this opening scene is like Caddyshack with guns. Like yes. It's like Ted Knight is the Duke. he's just Judge Smales, just like, I'd love to spare your life, but I can't. You have to understand, if someone comes to my town, I'll give you a chance to pay $15,000 in bail in 12 hours, but that's the law. That's
Syracusans born die here, sir.
You know what they did to our man.
And Aegeon, of course, is Rodney Dangerfield. Well, let me tell you, it was crazy. My wife and two twin sons. They were on this boat, and it split in half.
So, actually, Dangerfield would be perfect because I don't know if you noticed, but Aegeon keeps mentioning both in his memories and in the current environment how he's ready to die.
He wants to die.
He's just like, yeah, it's just great. It's just like he flashes back 30 years. He's like, so I hit a minor speed bump and I was ready to die. And then you go back to modern day and he's like, Duke, I'm ready to die.
I'm ready.
And the Duke is like, well, here's a trial you can go through. He's like, sure, but just to be clear, like, I'm done. I'm straight up. So, but let's walk through like the utter absurdity that Aegeon / Rodney Dangerfield walks through. So
what Rodney Dangerfield or Willie Loman or Shelley the Machine.
Well, that's
Levine.
The thing. This first act, it could be Willie Loman if you wanted to go that route.
Yeah, because he's all he is a salesman, and he can't make it happen, and so he's sent out.
Yeah,
like
but
he's
like Willie Loman, his life comes apart when his benefactor died, and so Willie Loman just like loses one contact, and he has no actual like skill sets or anything to fall back on. Like once he hits that nasty bump in the road, he's just his whole life falls apart.
Other than that death wish.
Yeah.
His death wish is the best thing about him.
The other thing is that Simpsons character Gil, where he's just like, oh, Gil's ready to die.
Yeah,
Gil's gotta make a sale, man. So for the absurdity on the boat in the memory, so he Gil / Rodney / Aegeon, his wife has 2 kids, which he describes in really weird ways. He talks about like the delightful pain that women have or something. It's not good.
That's not my understanding of that event at all.
They have the kids. He has to travel for business. His wife's like, well, I'm coming with you. And you can tell that like he's not thrilled about it. He wanted to have his twin sons run away and be on like a 6-month business trip, but she comes along. They're only 6 months in. They go to an inn where there's a poor pregnant woman, and she has twins. And I just want to read the sentence because it's fucking horrifying. And
It really is.
He says, well, their parents were exceeding poor, so I bought them.
Yeah.
And that's just the straight up logic. We were at a hotel. A poor lady had some babies. They were twins, so I bought them. And it's not commented on anyway. At no point is the Duke like, you just bought 2 human beings? At no point is it just, or like, we wanted to do this. It is a horrifying sentence, and you have to treat it as comedy or else you'll go insane.
Yeah, and it's like he does say, and it's unclear that, I mean, I think he means that he bought them because, they're going to grow up in poverty or whatever, but it doesn't come off like that. It's not like the woman said, please.
It could be delivered that way, but
Yeah.
It would be tough to get past the line, those, for their parents were exceeding poor. There's something about exceeding poor that I love. Just taking an adjective that means you picture something growing, but what is growing is their poorness.
Their poverty.
They're beyond. Again, it's like the president. It's like they're beyond poor. They are so poor. I've never seen people. They wish they could be poor.
That's
so I bought them so I thought I didn't have to, but I bought these people.
I bought those people, and they're better for it. So we think, yeah.
So they buy 2 babies. They buy 2 twins. They've got their own twins. They're on the boat back. They run into a storm. I can't tell if there's another boat that they see on the way they rescue some sailors from, or if it's just the sailors on their boat. But
yeah, I can't tell either.
Regardless, their boat gets into trouble, and they do what any responsible parent would do. The mom takes one of her sons and one of her slave owned babies, and she runs off to a mast at one side of the boat, and she ties a baby to a mast and ties a baby to a baby. Yep. And the husband does that at the other end of the boat, as you do. And this is the first time that Aegeon / Ronnie Dangerfield / Gil says, and I was ready to die. Yeah. I was responsible for 4 infants and my wife, but I wasn't going to even try. But then my wife started crying, and then the baby started crying, and then the slave baby started crying. And I was like, okay, we got to do this. But Aegeon, man of the house, as soon as he sees a storm, is ready to go.
Oh, he folds like a stack of dimes. He's done immediately. And I actually wrote that down, but my wife kept crying. I was ready to die.
I just love that he's just like, you can picture Aegeon just like stripping off his clothes, just like ready to dive in the surf and just be like, babe, look, it's storm clouds. We're dead. Why are you tying those babies to the mast? Just
what's the matter with you, woman? Can't you embrace the icy chill of death?
Come on. He's been working so hard to get. Well, if you think about like the alternate history, what happened was Aegeon did not want probably a baby. Maybe he wanted a baby. Then he gets 2 babies. He's not happy with that. He tries to escape on a business trip. His wife follows him. His wife talks him into buying 2 more babies. So he's got 4 babies. And I think that might be why Gian is ready to die. This is not
that
what
would
he was
be
hoping for.
that would be a funny way to look at it, that he wasn't ready to die until 4 babies came into his life. And then he's like, yeah, I can't. Like, I was looking for a storm, to be honest with you.
He's essentially Tom Selleck in 3 Men and a Baby.
Yes, he is.
And then in his telling, it's funny, he spends 5 years wandering Greece and, quote, Asia, looking for his lost. I'm sorry, we skipped the most visually wondersome part, is that the boat that they're in breaks in half.
Mm-hmm.
So that there's one free twin, one slave twin, and one parent on each half of the boat. And they both get picked up by separate fishermen or Navy folks or whatever, and pulled off to the separate towns of Syracuse and Ephesus. Blah, blah.
Do you ever see Manhattan Murder Mystery? Because this reminded me at the end of Manhattan Murder Mystery, Woody Allen's in bed with Diane Keaton, and he says, like, he's trying to wrap up the whole story in his head because they find the killer and all that stuff.
Uh-huh.
But he's trying to reason it out, and he says something to the effect of, so you're a twin or I'm a twin, or he's a twin and she's a twin. like it's like this convoluted, and he keeps saying twin, but like this is that, like, Egion's whole thing reminds me of that, this kind of like so convoluted way of getting these two twins.
So I walked across Asia, but I didn't find it. It's a terrible way to like try and find a person. I just started walking across Asia, and took years, didn't find him at all. I think so. I haven't seen Manhattan Murder Mystery, but like it's
worth it. It's got some laughs.
Or this is like Parent Trap with stakes, where just like the kids could discover each other, but what if people were constantly trying to kill the little girls the entire time, or the girls were beating slaves? That's a comedy of errors.
What if there were slaves involved? Whoa. Yeah, like it really is, like, I as a premise, I really do think it's good. It's zany. Like, it reminds me of, like, as I said earlier, it's like an 80s movie. It's like Weekend at Bernie's. Here's the premise. We're running with it, folks.
Yeah, it is
this whole way through.
Because aren't there we don't think of like those 80s movies as needing stakes, but aren't there like mob criminals in Weekend at Bernie's that are like they're going to kill him if Bernie's not dead, right? So
right, he was slated to get whacked.
Okay, yeah, he's probably up to his neck and dead. Okay, yeah.
Yeah. So the irony.
As part of this, we have to figure out which Shakespeare play Weekend at Bernie's is based on.
It's Titus Andronicus, I'm pretty sure.
Spoiler alert, Titus Andronicus.
But yeah, so like that's all Act 1, Scene 1 is the setup of this thing. And like Egion does go on, like at one point you think he's done and the Duke wants to hear more, and you're like, oh, like that's a funny moment where it's like, really? You want to hear more? He's talked for 3 pages.
It's true. It's just a fucking wall of text, and he's like, so that's enough. And Duke's like, no, I got nowhere to be. And then at the end of all that, again, I think this is the part where I thought of Judge Smales, was like, he's like, well, you're doomed, but if I will allow you to go around town,
you're doomed, sir,
and ask for money from people to pay bail. It's just like, you're Daddy Warbucks, and this guy doesn't live in this town, but you're telling him if he can go and beg enough people for his fucking life, then you, being the most magnanimous Duke imaginable, will let him go around and beg like a fucking peasant for this stuff.
Because the Duke basically says, as you said earlier, like it's against the law, but there's nothing I can do, but I'm the Duke. It actually reminds me of a bit that Lenny Bruce used to do about the separation between the law and the people who enforce the law, where it's like the people who enforce the law are separate from the law. They aren't the law. They are, they're agents of that thing. So like this idea of somebody coming in and go, if anybody throws crap over there, you kick him in the ass and you throw him in the shit house. But do it when I'm out of the room, because I've got an image to uphold. It's that kind of thing where it's like, this is the law and this is the law, but I can't be around when it happens. Like I don't enforce the law. I'm the Duke.
But bail has to be paid. Like bail is the backbone of our society. Like you can't.
Yeah.
If we start letting people get off without bail, where does it end?
Yeah. It's like the law is the law.
We're not murdering old men. So I think like Act 1, Scene 1, you could confuse with a tale of like tragedy and woe. But thankfully we get to Act 2, Scene 1, which
Act 1, Scene 2, right?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes. Where it just gets pretty stupid pretty fast. First of all, like in classic fashion, like you were talking about, whenever someone says like, do we have a police officer? And someone's like, I'm a police officer.
Yeah,
it cuts right from like Egeon saying like, whoa, that I could ever find my son. And then his son just like in expository dialogue says, well, I'm the guy wandering and doing all these things and I'm looking for my brother. And gosh, it would be weird if my dad knew I was looking for my brother and was out here looking for me. That would be strange. I would love to find my brother, but it's so hard to find my brother. Has everyone put it together that I am the son of the character on screen 45 seconds ago? Have you? Because I am looking for my twin brother. It's just bonkers.
He uses one of those water metaphors you love so much too. He says, I to the world am like a drop of water that in the ocean seeks another drop. And as soon as I read that, I was like, oh, I was going to love that.
Well, I like that this one actually comes full circle, and that it's like bad metaphor, but like bad metaphor, and like, okay, we're going to use it twice, so it'll pay off for a certain amount. Like there's this, like you can see Shakespeare like map out the whole thing here. Like Antipholus, if that's how we're going to pronounce his name, he's been on stage for all of like a minute. And he does his water metaphor. Says, I'm just basically a droplet of water in an ocean looking for another droplet of water. And he says, oh, and in my quest, I bet I'll lose myself. And it's like, yeah, in about 5 minutes, you're gonna
wink,
lose yourself.
wink.
So
it's like Shakespeare just studied the word foreshadowing and was like,
ooh, I gotta do that. I should do that. Act
prithee.
1.
Yea, verily, foreshadowing I shall have.
And then for no reason that I can understand, he just tells the grown-up slave that he lives with to take his money and go back to his inn. It's not as particularly, it's just like such a like, well, we need a conflict, so I'm gonna give you a pile of money and walk away, and then I'll be able to ask your twin where the money is 5 minutes from now. But it doesn't really make any sense to just say like, oh, I'm not allowed to be in this town. If they catch me, I'm dead. If they catch me and I can't pay bail, I'm double dead. Hey, take this money and take it to a fucking hotel. Like it just doesn't really add up, but that's okay. They're idiots.
That's the thing though, is that it does in a way. First of all, is it that great of a law if it's something that can be easily avoided by just saying you're from somewhere else? like I'm actually.
Are you
from
Detroit.
Syracuse?
No.
No. Yeah. Well, fair enough. Come on in.
Okay.
Like I thought of that immediately. Why does he just tell people he's not from Syracuse? But like the other thing was later on, he says something about. I actually wrote it down. He says, they say this town is full of cousinage, as nimble jugglers that deceive the eye, dark-working sorcerers that change the mind, soul-killing witches that deform the body, disguised cheaters, parading mountebanks, and many such like liberties of sin. He's a yokel,
He's an absolute yokel. And like when you think of like, when it's just funny to imagine like the beginning of Welcome to the Jungle, where Axl Rose as a hayseed gets off the bus and looks around. And he sees Slash passed out on a street corner, but if instead he saw a juggler, he's just like, oh man, LA's crazy. There's jugglers everywhere.
I can't take it.
Jeez, but I made a mistake. I can't handle it here.
I think that's part of what it is, though. Like, he's kind of like, look, I don't trust these people. Dromio, can you just take my money and just take it back to the hotel where I know it's safe? Because I'm going to get jumped here.
you can picture exactly that mook who would be like, well, I don't know, these jugglers are gonna get me any second. But you're from Syracuse. You're a Syracuse guy, so I can trust you. So take my money and run back. Yeah, I can see that. I can see him being an absolute, it being a way to make him a dum dum.
Yeah, I mean, because that's really the only justification I can see for having him go to Dromio and say, "Hey, take this money back to the hotel."
Well, also because he says, and because he's trying to get the merchant. He's like a sad sack businessman too, because he's trying to get the merchant to hang out with him, and the merchant's like, "Nope, I gotta get out here," and I got other meetings to go to. And he's like, "Well, that's okay. I'm gonna walk around and look at the buildings."
Yeah.
Just like, okay. Look at again. So there is a death warrant out for anyone not from this town, and you're gonna walk around with your eyes up at the fucking sky, going, "Look at the building."
Yeah.
How'd they built that?
Yeah. It really is. Like, it really has to be played that way, I feel, because it's the only way to justify that, and it really is like. But then again, it doesn't.
Well,
It doesn't necessarily.
I think the merchant literally says to him, like, "Hey, I'm serious. They will string you up if they hear you're from Syracuse. Let's do this business and get out of here." And he's like, "Okay, you go over there. I'm gonna walk around and look at the buildings."
Yeah,
So, like, I think that'd be an easy way to play it, to just be like, I don't know, this whole family is clearly dumb from the start, and they're just kind of like stuck with their dumbness. And so Dromio from Syracuse walks off screen, and like 20 lines later, Dromio from this town walks on screen, because this is going to get really hard to say out loud. Antipholus from Ephesius, Jesus God, that's a mouthful.
You know what I've been doing is putting Antipholus of S, Antipholus of E.
I like that a lot better. Antipholus of E is late for dinner. And as we'll learn later, Antipholus of E's wife is botsed. And so as soon as he's late for dinner, she sends the slave out looking for him. And I like Dromio. He just, like, instead of saying anything, he says it 19 different ways, but I like the rhythm of how he says it. And, like, he's basically says the food's getting cold, but like he says, like, she slapped me, the food's cold. You should come home. You're not coming home because you're full. You're full. You should be hungry. I wish you were home. And just like, it's kind of like a waste of words, but I like the way he piles them on. And so it's both fun to see out loud, but also, like, I think it could be helpful in, like, having Antipholus of S seem bewildered when Dromio walks back on screen. Because the Dromio walks off screen is just like, man, someone else would steal money from you, but I never would. And the one that walks on screen is, like, clearly used to being beaten, used to living with Antipholus of E's insane wife, and he's got a different style to him. I could see why it would be bewildering to Antipholus of S.
Of S. Bravo. But no, I mean, I think what I like about what you just said about Dromio is that I think that kind of repetition and piling of words is true of both versions of Dromio, because Dromio of S kind of does something similar later on, even though I hate with a passion the bald exchange, which we'll get to in a moment.
That is a pile of mud to get your Jeep stuck in.
Oh,
that is just
God.
Terrible. I can't imagine leaving that in any production.
But you'd be like cutting out like 20 minutes of dialogue. It just seems like they go on forever.
And just, I think that is one of the worst things, when Shakespearean characters debate something for no reason. They're just like, well, does a tree grow?
Yeah.
And for 5 minutes. It's just like, well, you'd have to say so, wouldn't you?
Does a tree grow?
But does a door grow? Well, a door is a tree, isn't one? Shut the fuck up. What? Can we get back to the goddamn plot?
We get it, Shakespeare. You're very clever.
Everyone in your world is entirely too clever. It's the fucking West Wing here. Everyone is just speaking in fucking monologues.
Ooh, that's a good way to. Is Aaron Sorkin our modern Shakespeare?
But just like,
he'd love it. He'd love it.
Yes, yes, he would. So let's not consider that option. So I think they just go back and forth a lot. But the three things that jump out at me. A, Dromio talks about how the crazy wife beat him before he came here because her husband's late. She beat him because her husband's late. Second of all, there's enough clues here about what's happening but people don't pick up on it. Like he says, like, didn't I give you the money to take to the Phoenix? And he's like, we can go back to whatever the name of the other inn is. But like they say the name of two separate inns. And so it's easy enough to say like, no, not the Phoenix, this other inn. But like,
It's the centaur, I think.
yeah, it's the centaur. And like two very different animals. So it'd be
Yeah.
easy to say like, no, you like, if that was really your money, you'd freak out and be like, no, you took it to the wrong bar, idiot. But then he blows past that, and then he strikes Dromio as well. So like this play is a lot of like very witty slaves being very witty while they're being slapped. They always have something a great pun right before they just get this shit slapped out of them. It's very odd, and the only way to like enjoy it is to make it fun, because otherwise it's horrific if you were to take it on its merits.
Yeah, while you were just talking about that the Dromio rhythm and the kind of like almost like accentuating the punchline or the slap, it reminds me of when I was studying at the Royal Academy. There was this guy who
I had a slave.
I had a
And
slave
I
named
would
Dromio.
Beat him mercilessly, and he would say the funniest puns.
He would we have us howling before I would cave his face in with my fist. But there was this guy who came in to talk to us, who was he was a TV writer for the BBC, and he was an old man. I think he worked on like Are You Being Served? Like an old man. And he said something crazy to me, and it makes sense when you watch sitcoms. But like he was saying something like that you have to have a laugh every 10 seconds or something like that in a sitcom. Like the laughs have to come almost like the rhythm is like every 10 seconds. I think it's 10.
Yeah.
But like that's kind of what I feel was going on here in Comedy of Errors. I feel like he's really trying to pack in this, like, even like Aegeon goes on for a long time. I feel like that in and of itself is a joke, this old man who's ready to die, and this is really does have a sitcom feel to it, almost like like these characters are maybe a little over the top. The premise is so unbelievable, and the rhythm for the Dromio scenes just makes me think of that thing. I have to have a laugh every 10 seconds. Like it seems kind of ahead of its time in a lot of ways.
It would be fun to look at this and just like go down the lines and just mark with like a check mark wherever you thought like the beat was, where he'd probably be trying to get in a laugh line or something. But it makes sense. Like if you think about like what do Abbott and Costello or Chaplin or someone else like what's the laugh they most want to get? Like some truly inventive physical comedy thing that they do where like you can't believe that they just like fell off a chair and fell up into a staircase and like did something amazing. But you can only do that once every 2 minutes, and so you're going to get slapped every 20 seconds, or you're going to slap someone else. And so like it's those amazing things that like make you an amazing performer. But if you want to like deliver people and keep them engaged, then someone needs to be slapped every 30 seconds or so.
Yeah. Like for every Aegeon monologue, there's got to be a Dromio Antipholus scene. You know what I mean? Like for every long, like invested comedy bit, there's got to be the short beat 'em ups to keep the audience there,
And I think like it'll be interesting to see as we move along, like if is anyone of the same class as the protagonist ever dealt physical violence for humor, or do you literally only ever punch down? Like it's literally only ever acceptable to just be like, what a fool, slap. But at no point,
that's
like
interesting. Yeah,
at no point are you gonna slap slap a prince or slap a rival king or slap slap someone of the same social standing.
As soon as you
betting
punch
no.
up, it becomes a tragedy.
That's
pretty
King
pretty
Lear.
fast. Yeah.
It's gonna be tough. So we're gonna do 2 acts today because that's it for Act 1. It's Judge Smales talking to the guy, and then his son being a dum-dum confusing 2 twins, and then that's it. Like I think it has to be the quickest first act we've gotten through so far.
Yeah, it's before like again sitcom style. It's like before the first commercial. Like that's all the like exposition has come out.
So the second act, the first scene of the second act is, I just want to check and make sure I'm right about this. Yeah, so it's all Adriana, the wife of I've already forgotten I find Antipholus' name almost impossible to remember. Antipholus E's wife, and Luciana, her sister, and it's just them talking back and forth with Dromio E moving in and out. And what I liked about this is at the beginning, I thought Adriana was a reasonable person and Luciana is a sexist dolt. And Luciana might still be a sexist dolt, but you realize over the course of this act that Adriana is kind of like insane, and in a way that like I feel like is so much better than Shrew, where like I feel like she's a fully fleshed out nutty person. And her husband is late for dinner, and she goes nuts. She jumps immediately to he's sleeping with someone. He's like, he doesn't love me anymore. I'm ugly. And at first it seemed like Luciana was like an insane person saying, well, it's not yours to wonder about a man. A man's going to do what he wants to do. And she does say those things. But over the course of this act, I start to feel like Luciana is just like, oh, I know my sister's about to go crazy, so I'm going to try and do whatever I can to anchor her into place. And as a crazy person, I find her a really engaging character. Like, I feel like she's crazy enough to like make everyone else's reality hers, or make her reality everyone else's.
It certainly makes me want to meet Antipholus of E. I'm sorry, because like, we've seen Dromio has already set up that Dromio of E has already set up that Adriana can be violent, because she just beat him before he got out there.
You know how they subtly established this?
Yeah.
By beating him on stage.
Yeah, but like, yeah, I agree with you. I think Adriana started out like I like how modern her point of view is in the beginning. It feels, like the hypocrisy of it actually reminded me a lot of my stepfather growing up, where like when my mom would go out to do things, he would call it running around. Like, you're always running around. Out there running around. Why do you need to go to, all the way to Easton or whatever, like a 20-minute drive, but he was never held to that same, no, you were not to ask where he was,
And the funny thing about that is, if a spouse starts saying that about someone, they're crazy, possessive, and controlling, but they're also probably right, because you're probably driving them insane. So they probably are looking for an excuse to get eggs on the other side of town.
Yeah.
Get the fuck out for a half hour.
Yeah, I'll do a half hour for eggs.
I like what you said about wanting to be Antipholus of E, because I feel like it's weird the way it always parallels like what we see in like recent comedies and whatnot, but in like a body swap film, or like the movie where Will Ferrell goes back to school,
Old School.
In a body swap movie or like a back to school movie, there's always something where like the guy has the nag wife, and like has to like switch places with someone who like is used to being out there and like dating and having fun and whatnot. And so for this Antipholus, is that even right?
Yeah.
That worked.
Antipholus.
It started to sound like syphilis in my head, and I was just like, I think I got something wrong there.
Festivus for the rest of us.
Yes. The fact that like the Antipholus without a wife is getting pulled into her orbit, and the fact that there's another Antipholus out there who like is happy to be away from this. It just feels like it mirrors like what we see in like in body swap comedies, or in like just like culture swap comedies where just like if you want to establish like what it's going to be like for someone to jump into marital life, then you have this like you lean into having a controlling, shrewish wife or spouse on the other side of it to just like really drive home like, oh, this domestic stuff is like it's gonna be a tough transition for this guy. And it's interesting to think like, oh yeah, I can't picture this twin navigating it, but I want to I want to see what's happened to the guy that's had to put up with this for 20 years.
Yeah, and it makes me want it to end like, you know, some of those movies that you're referencing. It's where like the particularly nasty, violent, naggy woman falls in love with the particularly nasty, violent man. You know, like,
Yeah.
we were mismatched all along, and this is the guy I really should be with.
I'm a piece of shit. I want a piece of shit too.
Yeah, yeah. And I initially thought that maybe that's where they're going with it. Like, Antipholus of S has no trouble beating the shit out of Dromio, and neither does Adriana of E.
Together. Oh, there's one Dromio who's gonna make out this. There's one Dromio who's really screwed. He's about to get all the beating.
But you know, you mentioned Luciana. Yes, she's definitely dealing with Adriana. But like it's funny. Like as I was reading all of her dialogue, you know, she just keeps, you know, basically saying, you know, you're men do what they want, you know, that's not your place, and you know, all that stuff. And it actually reminded me a lot of I just read an article in The Conversation. It's some blog, I can't remember, but it was written by this woman called Jane Ward, and she was talking about how early marital advice books, like in the early 1900s, late 1800s, early 1900s, were written by doctors who were part of the eugenics movement, which I think is fascinating. If you don't know anything about eugenics, you know, it's all about
Subscribe to my other podcast.
Yeah, Eugenics Monthly. But it, you know, like there was a fear because the women of the time were horrified by the behavior of the men once they were married and got them in the bedroom. And all of a sudden, these eugenicists were worried that whites weren't going to reproduce because everybody was a scumbag. So like there was like all these early books were all about women have to be subservient, men, you know, this is the correct way, like almost like a guide to keep women from fleeing.
That's fucking hilarious. Like I now want to do a story about someone who like travels through time and like they are thrilled to find some intelligent pro-feminist men who are like, we've got to get men to like come around and stop treating women like shit. This is prehistoric. This is caveman. Like, we're Americans. We have to stop this. And they're like, yeah. And they're like, to save the white race, of course.
Wait, what? That's not what I intended.
No, wait. Back it up. What? You don't think we should treat women with respect? No, the thing after that.
And then the Curb Your Enthusiasm music plays. Boom, 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 ba-da, ba-da, ba-da.
You can take literally anything and append to it at the end. Of course, to save the white race. Son of a bitch.
That's not what I meant. That was more Seinfeld than Larry David. But yeah, like it just reminded me of that, and like their relationship is actually very interesting to me. It's maybe one of the, like, it actually reminded me a lot of the not the nurse character, but the attendant in the last play.
I can't remember her name, but I agree. But what I liked about it is, like, I think they're both imperfect, but I think they're well drawn as talking past each other. But I think Adriana gets like a really good soliloquy where like her sister's being doltishly paternalistic, and so it's in a self-pitying way, but she just has a good soliloquy where she says like, someone who isn't married wouldn't understand what this is like. Someone who's ignored wouldn't understand what this is like. And she is being maudlin and self-pitying, but it's a really good soliloquy to just like say like, I know I'm being unreasonable and nutty, but like, you don't know what the fuck you're talking about. Don't quote me some fucking pamphlet from a white nationalist about why I should be worried, okay? Like, I know, like, you're crazy too, sis. Like it's just it's a really nice portrait of someone who's like, no, I don't have all the facts right, but like I know in my gut something's up.
Yeah. And like that soliloquy, I think you're referencing the same one that I marked down, because it's heartbreaking. Again, like, you know, it actually reminds me a lot of Shrew, where like some of the things Kate says are heartbreaking. You know, like Adriana says, my decayed fair, a sunny look of his would soon repair. You know, like if he would just smile at me once in a while, you know, like that's crazy sad to me, you know?
That, and like, well, and the way her crazy, again, like this doesn't have the undercurrent to Shrew, which again, I think we're layering on top of it, but I'm happy that it works. But it doesn't have the undercurrent of like understanding that it's creepy, but like Adriana says things like, well, yeah, he'll be late sometimes because his world is the whole world. Your world is the kitchen. So like, why would you basically, like, you're a turnip. He's a man. Like, what's a turnip going to wonder what a man's doing? It's just like,
what business does a turnip have?
and to say that to someone who, like, in theory, like, has Adriana's goal of being a married woman. It's like, oh, I'd give anything for you. You never have to leave the house, and you just have to wonder where your husband is all day. And you take out all your rage on your house servant. Gosh, I wish I had that. It's just like, it's, if the tone was different, it would be Shrew-esque and like driving her insane. Okay, anything else in scene one?
No, I really wish though that you're a turnip, he's a man were an actual line.
It can be. It can be. So I feel like scene two just like nicely gets fucking insane on a couple different levels. First of all, when Adolphus of Syracuse runs back into Dromio of Syracuse, he starts using this really abusive talk with him, in that, like, and in the first scene with him, he's like, oh, you're the best slave ever. Like, you completely get me, and you make me laugh when I'm sad, and like, it's great. But as soon as he's worried about his money, he starts to be like, Dromio, you need to like change to how I'm feeling, okay? I'm in a pissed off mood right now, so don't try and be funny, and just know that it's your job to sense what kind of mood I'm in. So you need to pick up on what kind of fucking mood I am and not play these jokes, because if you do, I'll beat you. And it just, like, he goes like,
that's a depressing moment between any boss and the employee, where like the boss just goes, like, no, we don't have that relationship. I find you amusing. Yeah, I find you amusing
right now,
but we're not friends. You know, like, and that's basically what it is. Like, he really shuts that shit down pretty fast.
Yeah, he says to him, learn to jest in good time. It's just like, sorry, you're pissed off. You've told me in the past it's my job to make you smile when you're pissed off. So I was thinking, gosh, you're pissed off. I'll try and fine, whatever. Fuck. I didn't steal your money.
Not when you have my money. Look what happened to my money.
I didn't steal it. You're beating me. I didn't steal your money. You're acting insane. I don't know what to do.
Do you know what problem I have with this? And this is like right from when Adriana comes on.
Uh-huh.
Well, just even before that, even when there was a mix-up, we already know that Antipholus of S is here in Ephesus specifically to look for his brother. He says as much. And we know that he knows the whole story because his dad, he's the one that ended up with his dad. So, and we know Aegeon goes on and on and on about this to complete strangers. Imagine what it was growing up with this guy.
No, he walks on screen. He's like, well, I'm looking for my twin. I know there's a twin out there. People keep saying I did things that I didn't do right near this town where my brother, his ship went aground, and where I'm looking for him.
Right. It's like of the characters, like that's why I think Antipholus of E is already becoming so fascinating, because I feel like this kind of make 'em up, this kind of comedy of errors should be happening to him right now. Like this story should be happening to him because he's not the one searching, and he doesn't have the story.
Yeah,
You know,
there's no reason to. It's terrible to have him aware that he has a twin. There's no reason. Like if Ralph Macchio knew he had a twin in My Cousin Vinny, and he said, "I shot the clerk," he'd say,
I
"Oh,
shot the
actually, I think, I think that was my twin. He shoots clerks."
again, I asked him, and again he replied, "I shot the clerk." my friend Jordan will that line gets him every time. When it just the
The
sheriff,
lawyer reading it back.
no, the sheriff sitting there going, and I asked him again, and again he replied, I shot the clerk." And it's just the idea, because like, like the dramatic irony
Yeah.
is Ralph Macchio going, "I shot the clerk."
Yeah.
Like just like the reading of it with no context is so wonderful. Like it's such a wonderful comedic moment.
Yeah.
Maybe the next podcast should be about My Cousin Vinny.
I think we should figure out who the fuck directed My Cousin Vinny and watch everything that he directed.
Wonderful. But anyway, like I had a problem with that, because if anybody who should be flummoxed by this premise, it should be Antipholus of E, because he doesn't have the story from his father.
Yeah.
You know, it just doesn't make sense that Antipholus of S, who is he knows the whole spiel,
He's
is the one who's getting
for a
fooled
matching
here.
droplet of water, and
Right.
people keep saying like, "Hey, you droplet of water did this thing." And he's like, "No, I can't be bothered. I'm looking for someone who looks just like me and is my mirror image. So stop saying I did things that I didn't do in this town where I'm looking for."
Yeah. Like I understand that, you know, these are all morons, but I just feel like Shakespeare has shifted it to the wrong brother here.
Yeah,
You know?
I think you have to keep it moving, or else you'd be like, "Oh, that's stupid." And so, like, to your point, like, it needs to be comedic timing every 10 seconds or so.
Yeah.
This is absolutely nothing, but I like that when Adriana walks on screen, she just goes, "Hey, Antipholus!" She's just like a Goomba Italian man just walking on screen, just like, and then has just a mountain of text calling out his, which he thinks is her brother-in-law, for, you know, messing around on the side. It's too many words, but it's I just like she walks on screen saying "AA" like she's
Hey,
Benny Barbarino or something.
Yeah, I mean, she like, this is where her craziness definitely shines through. Like this whole scene, like when she, like some of the things she says are really deeply disturbing. Like,
Well, but they're also really funny because she has I'm sorry, I confused Adriana and Luciana, but she has this wonderful the beginning of her soliloquy is like, "Here's how you used to talk to me. You used to say that no words were music unless I said them. You used to think that no object was pleasant to see unless I touched it. No one's touch was welcome unless it was me touching you." And then she said, "You used to say no meat was tasty unless I carved it." And that's her kicker. And it's just like, what? Wait, he told you that, like, "Oh, babe, I only like turkey when you carve it, babe.
you cut the best beef.
I don't eat nothing except when you do a nice omelet. That's all I eat, babe."
That's the first question you ask when you taste a delicious piece of meat is, "Hey, who cut this?"
It's not how she cooked it, not how she basted it. It's just like, my
Who
wife.
sliced this meat? It's delicious.
Not so much a cook, but she can carve a fucking bird. And that's her kicker. She builds up from "my words are music, my touch is welcome" to just like, "And who's gonna carve your turkey, babe?"
Hey, who carves your turkey? I carve your turkey.
It's great because it's just like, "Oh, Adriana, you're weird, aren't you? You're a little off. You sweet summer child."
She's very, very weird. Like, the one thing that she says that really stuck with me, which is again one of those things where it's like, oh boy. She says, "Because we are one, your cheating has made me cheat." Like, because we are the same body. Like, your body is my body and my body is your body. Because you're cheating, you made me cheat. I'm defiled because of you. Like that was like, whoa, wait a second.
She says, if you cheat on me, I digest the poison of your flesh. It's
Right.
like, first of all, what the fuck is that metaphor? Second of all, if I poisoned you, great, but why are you eating my flesh? What?
Don't you worry about it.
I don't know you. If I
could
did,
carve turkeys, I'll carve you too.
Right. The fact that she goes from like, I carved the best meat to like, I eat your flesh in one fucking stanza.
I drink your milkshake.
And just
drink it up.
The great thing is Antipholus is like, I'm into it.
That's the other thing I wrote down is that he hears all this stuff and he says, you know what, I better see this out. And you're like, what? What are you talking about? Like, wouldn't any reasonable person be like, hold up, I think we have, first of all, I'm not married.
Second of all, I'm not married to you.
Second of all, I'm not married to you.
It seems like your top selling point, you're describing yourself as terrible to look at, and your top selling point is how you carve meat. I'm not hungry. You are so insane about food that you beat your slave and sent him after me. I'm sorry your husband, whoever he is, missed dinner. I'm sorry all your metaphors for love are about meat.
They're all about
I'm sorry that when you're angry at your husband, you say you're going to eat his flesh.
Yeah. And you all, like, as you said before, you have to understand, like, this whole problem that Adriana is levying on Antipholus right now is all because of lunch. He missed lunch. Like, it's not, like, it's not, he hasn't done anything. He's not even the real Antipholus, but like the idea is it was a lunch that was missed. That's what we're talking about.
But at no point is she like, oh, my poor husband, he could have been mugged. He could have broken his leg.
No.
He could have been, it's just like, son of a bitch, he's late. I'm going to beat my servant. She's bots. But what makes it really fun is that, first of all, I think she's great at talking her way through it, even when she's crazy, and she brings it to like a fever pitch with this great sing-songy rhyme about how she's a vine. And I don't want to usually read too much, but this one I just feel like the rhythm of it is great. She says, so it doesn't say she does, but I picture her grabbing his arm and just
definitely.
She says, come, I will fasten on this sleeve of thine. Thou art an elm, my husband, I a vine, whose weakness married to thy stronger state makes me with thy strength to communicate. If aught possess thee from me, it is dross, usurping ivy, briar, or idle moss, who all for want of pruning with intrusion infect thy sap and live on thy confusion. And she's like treating him like an amnesiac and just like, I know the whores got into your brain, but that's not your fault. The problem is that I wasn't holding you, but I'm never going to let go and never let these bad thoughts go into your head again. I'm here, like she's like Kathy Bates. And, and he, delightful dullard that he is just like, maybe I am her husband.
Yeah, he says, until I know this sure uncertainty, I'll entertain this offered fallacy. He's like, I better see where this leads. And you're like, wait a second, buddy. Like, he's like, things are real in Ephesus. I like it here.
He's just like, I don't know. She seems pretty sure I'm her husband, so I better go with this.
Yeah, all of a sudden he's the world's greatest detective. He's no, like it's like it's a wonderful, like it really is. Like I wrote down that that kind of like just onslaught that she gives him is really funny. Like when you consider that he doesn't know who the fuck she is.
It's funny, but it's also like I think we're gonna do Midsummer's Night Dream after this, and it was great for me because I love the meaning of the words she's saying. I love the rhythm and the lyricism coming out of her mouth, and she, through great writing, casts a spell over him, and then he uses like somewhat magical language to describe what's happening to him. Dromio uses somewhat magical language to describe what's happening to them, and you just feel like you can see, like, if we do have the chronology right, they're like Shakespeare being like, oh yeah, I could just like, I write well enough, I could just say magic happens. Like, I can just say, you think you're a fucking donkey, and then you're a donkey right now, and the crowd will go for it. So like, it was just beautiful to see, and like it made sense for the character when the writing's that good, to just be like, to go along with it, because like I went along with it. I was like, I know you're crazy. You're talking about carving meat as if it's love, but you had a great stanza there, and so like, fuck it, I'm there.
Yeah, she's definitely like, it's nice to see a character now, a female character that is being used in a true comedic way. You know,
And yeah,
she's not there as she's aggressive in the comedy. She's not a passive entity, you know.
yeah, and I like that. There's something, again, if you do it right, there's something great in like Dromio being pulled along in the dream, but she's still slapping him out of it. She's like, no, the dream's not for you. And she's like, come upstairs with me, we'll have dinner there. And Dromio's like, and should I bar the gate? And she's like, I will just, don't worry about that, I'm gonna slap the shit out of you. And
I
so
will
like
fucking kill you.
he's trying to go along with like the magical lyricism, and she's just like, you fucking servant. I've got him back in the house. You don't do shit. If anyone comes through there, I'm gonna slap you so hard.
And you know, she really saved. Like, she comes in right at the point where I could not take that ball discussion any longer.
Oh, I'm so glad we didn't spend a second on it, because first of all, it serves no plotting effect, right? They just decide to they're next to each other.
They're buying
They
time.
decide to debate whether or why Father Time would be bald.
Yes.
And one of them describes hair as excrement, and it's just like, what? That's not. Stop it.
It's bizarre. And Dromio has a stupid point. He says, "For what he hath scanted men, meaning Father Time. For what he, Father Time, hath scanted men in hair, he hath given them in wit." And I wrote down, that is not true. I know plenty of bald idiots. In fact, one of them runs the school where I live. And I'm going to name him by name, and I hope he hears this.
His name is Dromio. We should come up with a phrase for that, where it's just like a pocket vignette where he's trying to show off his lyricism, and it doesn't advance any characters, and it's also needlessly devoid of stakes. Like, there will be stakes in the action that's happening, and they'll just stop and talk about some shit for no reason.
You know, it reminds me of, there's a thing in commedia dell'arte, which again, I think I mentioned in a different episode, where Shakespeare would have certainly have known about them and probably seen several. I believe it's called a lazzi, or a lazzi, Lazzi. I think those are short comedic scenes that really are kind of apropos of nothing. You know, which was a comedy tradition. You would just throw these like little improvised scenes in. Let me look that up. I think it's called a lazzi. There are two of them. There's a longer one, and there's a.
Well, I'd like a little lessy.
It says, lazzi are physical or verbal gags. They sometimes can add to a plot or relate to the current action, whilst other times they have no relevance to the story and serve as a distraction. And that comes from commedia dell'arte. A lazzi, yeah, Lazzi. To me, that's a lazzi. Yeah, I think that's it. It's a lazzi. It's just like it's like, hey, it's kind of like in vaudeville, where it's like, you know, the main story goes on and people just
right. It seems like the Adriana actor was slow getting her wig on, and so they see she's off stage, and so they have to waste like 60 seconds.
Yeah.
And so it's like, fuck. Why is Father Time bald? Well, it is.
And the crowd would just roll in the aisles.
It's hilarious how he claims us when we're 32 or 33.
Actually, it almost seems like Shakespeare tried to write out an improvised scene that somebody did, you know, like, and like, oh, that's funny, we should write that down, and then it just doesn't work.
It's exactly exactly the type of thing you talk out while drinking one night. You're like, oh, if we wrote this down, it's gonna be great. The next morning, you're just like, fucking Father Time's balls. What the shit?
What-
Leave it in. It's gonna kill. Trust me. Everyone at the bar loved it.
Shakespeare's still struggling with those edits. Not able to edit himself. But yeah, like I think, so far what we have is definitely a way more streamlined comedy. Like he's clearly hitting a stride here that he didn't have with Verona or Shrew,
Yeah, I will say that's one thing in that like he seems to know like this is a comedy, and I don't even need to justify like why there are high stakes or someone having death hung over them. Like it's just stupid. Don't take it seriously. You don't take it seriously when Wile E. Coyote falls off a cliff. You shouldn't take
Right.
it seriously that this guy's gonna have his head cut off if he doesn't pay bail. Like, and like you don't need to take it seriously like this guy searching for his twin can't understand what's going on here. Just like fuck it. The point is to slap each other and have some good jokes.
I think it's interesting the escalation over time of like the violence that's at stake. Like you have Shrew, which is kind of like almost like marital abuse, and then you get a straight up rape in Verona, and then now
That was
it's
the original title.
it's straight up rape in Verona.
Straight up rape. I was just thinking rape in Verona. Straight up rape in Verona.
And then like now it's full on like if you come to this town you die. like he's definitely like it's almost like we're tracking a serial killer at this point where it's like, well, he's clearly escalating. We need to get him before he kills again.
It's like Rob Liefeld is writing Shakespeare or something. It's just like let's give them all guns, let's kill more people.
Yeah, but it's definitely a way more of like, as you say, like the setup is a lot more streamlined. Like it's definitely getting like he certainly has learned to make the entrances and exits a little more like bang bang bang. Like I'm talking about my lost sons. Bam, we see Antipholus come in, immediately, and it's like it moves, way faster.
I'm interested to see how much slapping there is in Midsummer's Night Dream. Like that'll be the first one we get to. Like, oh, this is timeless, and just like if he can stop leaning on the slapping or anything else quite so much, and hopefully 200% less rape for no.
Now with 200% less rape,
substitute out the rape and just put in a donkey.
This play is certainly amusing to us. It was fun to think about what it'd be like if Mary and I were twins. There'd be funny mix-ups, hilarious ironic conversations, and I might have even been burnt at the stake. Fat and Greasy Citizens is presented by the players Chuck and Gabe. The theme song, A Robust Crew, is by Darren Curtis. Next week, more of Comedy of Errors. And for me, a lot of bees and terriers. Bye-bye.